A little over 1 month ago, Syracuse was off to a 4-0 start. It was a sweet time in the 3-1-5. Then, a cloud of darkness. 4 straight losses halted this Orange season. On top of those L's, the Cuse didn't have the comfort of home. 41 days since the last Dome game, an itch to get back in the Loud House. Waiting for SU, a 5-3 Boston College squad that has soared above expectations for this season. A chance to right the ship and get 1 win closer to bowl eligibility. It's Syracuse and BC on Cuse Countdown, and it starts right now. Welcome into the CitrusTV studio. It's Cuse Countdown time. Caleb Nice, Liam Griffin, and Peter Elliott getting you set for some Friday night lights. Syracuse and Boston College in the Dome. Before we get to Orange and Eagles, guys, we have to talk about the season-low 38-10 defeat on the road against Virginia Tech. A Thursday night game following a brutal loss down in Tallahassee. Many thought this game against a not-so-great Hokie squad and following a week of rest would be a reset for the Orange. Instead, the offense went ice cold, and it turned into 4 straight losses. Liam, a baffling loss that was just flat out embarrassing.
Yeah, the big thing that stuck out to me from this one, Caleb, was after the Florida State game, Dino Babers said the offense is going to go back to what it was. Surprise, surprise, Peter. The Orange turned out their worst offensive output of the season by nearly 100 yards. And when you look at the schedule, it was Clemson, UNC, and Florida State, the cream of the crop. They looked worse against Virginia Tech than they did against any of those 3 teams, and I don't think it was particularly close. The moral of the story for me after this game was, I'm not sure Syracuse is going to win another game.
I'm not sure either. Liam, the highlight of the last week in Syracuse football was Tommy DeVito scoring that rushing touchdown for the New York Giants against the Jets. And that tells you how bad this week has been for the Orange. This game might as well have been over halfway through the second quarter. Just 2 of Syracuse's first 8 drives went for longer than 10 yards. That's just flat out embarrassing, especially, Liam, coming off of a bye week. You cannot do that after 2 bad losses on the road. You got a week to recuperate and rest and prepare for this Hokie squad, which is not a titan like UNC or FSU, and they came out flat-footed and struggled all game long. Guys, Syracuse is dead last in the ACC. They're the only team winless in conference play.
Yep. Well, thanks for keeping an eye on those alums, Peter. Tommy DeVito, shout out right there, TD13. All right, let's go by the numbers. Our first digit, a sad one, 0, which marks Syracuse on third down conversions. The Cuse struggled mightily to move those chains, just 9 first downs to Virginia Tech's 28 first downs. Peter, first downs are rare. When your team goes 0 for 9 on third down conversions, they're going to be even more rare.
It's pretty tough, Caleb. It really starts not on third down, but it starts on first and second down, what the Orange do there. Because when you're running into a defensive line right there, like LaQuinn Allen does when you're getting sacked, like Garrett Schrader has so often this season, then you're setting up these third and long situations. Syracuse was, 6 of its 9 attempts were in that third and long territory. So that's why Syracuse struggled so much to convert in those long yardage situations. But the bigger question here, LG, is like, what do you even dial up on third down with the Syracuse offense? You can't throw it deep to any receivers because there's no dynamic weapon for this Orange team. And LaQuinn Allen, he's not going to get you that long yardage on a screen pass because he's not a receiving threat. What do you even do on third down, Liam?
They didn't do much. I mean, 0 third downs is an absolute disaster. You don't need me to tell you that, but here's why it was a disaster. Garrett Schrader got sacked, not once, not twice, 3 times. The first third down of the game was a 3rd and 28 yards. And you also had a false start on third down. When your quarterback is clearly not 100% and running for his life 24/7 and your receivers, frankly, don't have the athleticism to compete with Virginia Tech, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
All right, we're done with 0. Our next number, 42. SU running back LaQuinn Allen with just 42 yards on the ground in this one. The man under center, Garrett Schrader, he had negative 42 rushing yards. Liam Schrader's always been a threat with his legs, but now it seems his inability to scramble is just hurting the rest of the run game, you see.
I actually want to give LaQuinn Allen credit, Caleb, because I think it is incredibly impressive that he managed to get 42 rushing yards with how atrocious this offensive line is, and the play calling isn't helping him out either. No. I have no idea why. Jason Beck, time and time again, wants to have him run up the middle when he's clearly better going to the outside. I don't get it. And when defensive players are blitzing with little to no opposition for O-line, making life incredibly difficult for Garrett Schrader, How can you expect him to not put up negative 42?
Well, Liam, it just feels like we're seeing a different Garrett Schrader. There was once a Garrett Schrader who was so dangerous on his feet that he scored 4 rushing touchdowns in a single game and almost broke the Syracuse single-game rushing record. Liam, you were there. You were in
good times.
West Lafayette
Good times.
for that game, so I wasn't making things up. I didn't dream that. I don't know where that game has gone for Garrett Schrader. He's been completely neutralized on his feet, which has been so frustrating for the Syracuse offense when you know he can't do anything. So defenses can just prepare for that, and then obviously he's struggled to throw the ball. So what do you do offensively? And on that note of LaQuinn Allen, yes, I mean, I agree. He's played well overall, but there's no one behind him. There's no Juwan Price isn't going to come out and save this team.
No.
Sean Tucker isn't coming through that door. That's the frustrating thing. LaQuinn Allen, yes, is good when you give him the ball, but he's not really a receiving threat like 34 once was. So I don't know what to do in the backfield, Liam and Caleb.
I think I speak for all of us when I say we miss Sean Tucker.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, our
Without
final
question.
number is 18. 18 minutes, 18 seconds to be exact. That was the time of possession for the Orange. The Hokies had almost 42 minutes, just total domination from Vodtech. Peter, believe it or not, it's actually really difficult to win a football game when you don't have the ball.
It is, Caleb. That's putting it mildly. Look, when I see that stat, I just think of the poor defense. I mean, out there on the field for 42 minutes in that one. What do you do when a defense that is already so depleted? I mean, you have no choice but to stick in there, and they put up a fight, I guess, against this Virginia team. But that's got to be so frustrating for the defense when they're out there for so long, and the offense just is not out there at all.
Yeah, the word I would use to describe this is predictable. When SU's offense is gaining six total yards over your first 4 drives, if you held the ball for a long time, Peter, I frankly would be blown away. If there was only one Orange drive that lasted longer than 3 minutes, Virginia Tech had 5 such drives. It was very predictable from the get-go because offense and defensively, complete ineptitude. So how do you expect to hold on to the ball when you're not doing anything on either side?
I don't know.
There's too many numbers, LG. You're hurting my head. All right. When you do have the ball, you have to be calling the right plays, and the coordinator positions have been under some scrutiny. Jason Beck's offense has put up just 20 points over the last 3 games, and defensive coordinator Rocky Long, we're going to talk about him too. Coming into this season, LG, Long was hyped up to be the godfather of the 3-3-5. At first, the defense was doing well. They were up the top of the nation in a couple of categories. But the last few games, that's really been missing.
Yeah, the issue I have with both Jason Beck and Rocky Long, Peter, is it doesn't seem like they're willing to make adjustments at all. Yeah. They keep trying the same thing. Surprise, surprise, you get the same results.
Yeah.
Schrader is still having trouble throwing. LaQuinn Allen is still having trouble going up the middle.
Yep.
Defensively, you still can't stop the run. It was an issue last year, too. I don't understand how it keeps happening. Dino said it. Depth is gone. The coordinators aren't doing a whole lot to help either. They've done nothing to adapt.
Well, guys, you know who I'm missing? It's the coordinators from last season. Remember Robert and I and Tony White?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was so much of a better situation for Syracuse. And Tony White, obviously the prodigy of Rocky Long with that 3-3-5 defense. He's thriving out in Nebraska with the Cornhuskers. So we see this 3-3-5 defense having success, but Rocky Long has not been able to do it. And granted, some of it has been out of his control with the defense, suffering so many injuries throughout the year. But on both sides of the ball, from Jason Beck to Rocky Long, it's really been poor so far for these guys who have come in their first season.
So this week, Dino Babers was asked about that terrible loss down in Blacksburg. Check out what he had to say.
To throw the football, a lot of people have to be right. And there was just too much pressure, not enough guys open at certain times, and decisions need to be faster. So it goes around to all of them. It goes around to all the coaches. It goes around to the head coach, all of us. We all work together to make it easier. We need to make it easier on those guys to have an opportunity to have success.
Okay, so let's talk about the man in charge. When things go wrong, people are quick to point fingers at Dino Babers. After a 4th straight loss and losing the way SU did, the calls for Babers' job are getting louder and louder. Peter, the faith fluctuates so much with Dino, but right now it's got to be pretty low.
His seat has never been hotter. It's un fuego for Dino Babers. It's time to win some football games because he is coaching for his job. He's been asked that at press conferences. He said no comment to those questions, so he feels it. But is he going to respond on the field with the way the team performs? I don't know. I mean, I just wonder where that Dino Babers has gone that used to be so in it, you know, on the sidelines and then in the post-game locker room. He used to be pumping up the team, and I don't know where that enthusiasm has gone, but the enthusiasm that the players are showing isn't there either.
You've got to refine the love for the Ohana.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that it's been the same old story with Dino time and time again. lack of depth has worn the team down, and now they're on a 4-game losing skid. And you mentioned it a little bit, Peter. His press conference demeanor has been kind of different lately, and a little argumentative with the reporters as well. Like you mentioned, he's coaching for his job. If you don't make a bowl game after going 4-0 to start the year, Dino still hasn't made consecutive bowl games yet. If it doesn't happen in a year, I'm sorry, it's hard to justify keeping him.
All right. Well, it's time for our first break here on Cuse Countdown. When we come back, we take a trip into the Eagles' nest. Don't go anywhere. CC back after this.
Here's to the straggly ones, the lopsided ones, the first ones, the I miss my beard ones. And hey, I look good with this ones. But no way he's grown that in a week ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. That one. The itchy ones. The never forgotten ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The started late ones. The absolutely filthy ones. The drawn on ones. The finger ones. The pin ones. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the yeah, why not ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Welcome back to Cuse Countdown. Caleb Nice, Liam Griffin, Peter Elliott. When you're thinking about Boston College, if you're feeling some deja vu, you're not alone. Last season when the Orange went to Chestnut Hill, they were on a 5-game losing skid following a 6-0 start. Fast forward to this year, a 4-0 start before SU has now dropped 4 straight with the Eagles up next. Peter, between the history of bad blood and both teams fighting for a bowl spot, this could make for a really interesting matchup.
Yeah, Caleb, I'm ready to see another fight. I'm looking forward to that. Usually have to pay per view for those big boxing fights, but we could see another brawl here. Obviously, last year at the end of that game, we saw a big scrap between the Eagles and the Orange, and we could see that again, especially with how frustrated the Orange players have to be after 4 straight losses. You'd have to imagine they're taking a lot of tension in. Could that boil over on Friday? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it was a really weird game, even putting the whole skirmish aside. I mean, at the end of the day, it did not look like the Orange were going to win for a big period there. You could argue they got lucky, but 26 points in the fourth quarter propelled SU to victory again. It didn't really feel like a win after what had happened, but at the end of the day, it did snap a 5-game losing skid and got the Orange momentum heading into the bowl.
But for BC, it's been an opposite trajectory this year from Syracuse. The Birds started their season 1-3, but have since won 4 straight and are soaring. Liam, with the chemistry of this group cheffing up, is it bad time for Syracuse to catch Boston College?
I think so. Look, at the end of the day, the Eagles' start to the season could not have been more disastrous. I mean, you lose to Northern Illinois at home. I mean, come on. Alumni Stadium is a beautiful venue. Doing that place a disservice, losing to that team. Then you struggle against Holy Cross before giving Florida State one heck of a run for its money. It's been a terrible start, but since that 1-3 start, BC has beaten the teams it was supposed to beat. Virginia, Army, Georgia Tech, UConn. A hot team fighting for a bowl eligibility, Peter, is dangerous.
Yeah, look, none of those teams are going to make the college football playoff. Those are not stellar teams, none in the top 25. But the Eagles have some momentum, and that's exactly what Syracuse does not have. So I think a team with 4 straight wins, that means a lot against a team that has 4 straight losses. So it's a real unstoppable force versus very movable object on Friday.
We talked about that unstoppable force. It's time to give credit to the man who has coached his team to a 5-3 start, Jeff Hafley, in his 4th year as head coach. This was a guy who you could say was definitely on the hot seat at the start of this season. After a pair of 6-win seasons in Chestnut Hill, that number was cut in half last season. A massive disappointment for the Eagles. Peter, Hafley's gotten off to a hot start this year, though.
Yeah, what a rebound here for the BC coach. I mean, this is a coach that a lot of analogs to Dino Babers, a couple middling seasons here, and the Eagles fans were calling for his job. LG, I know you're active on the BC message board, so you're plugged in to what the fans are saying, but it seemed like his career prospects needed a prayer after a narrow 3-point loss to Holy Cross. That was just one of the Eagles' wins in those first 4 games, but it's been a major turnaround for the Eagles, and it looks like he's got some job security. I bet that's what Dino Babers wants right now.
Yeah, fans were irate at Hafley after the Northern Illinois loss, but what he has done for recruiting for the Eagles is phenomenal. At the end of the day, ever since ESPN started doing these recruiting rankings in 06, Hafley's classes of 21 and 22, far and away the best in BC history. Yeah, it was a bit of a rough start this year, but BC hasn't had an 8-win season since 09. There was a lot of confidence Hafley could be that guy to get them to the top, and Caleb, it looks like it might happen.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. Hafley has had some great quarterback play. Thomas Castellanos has brought it this season, averaging nearly 300 total yards of offense per game. The USC transfer is also one of 11 children. The Castellanos kids could sport a whole team themselves, but you could probably be down a man, and Castellanos would still find a way to get it done. LG, he could be a threat for this SU team.
Hey, Thomas Castellanos and Phillip Rivers would get along great. But at the end of the day, when I look at Thomas Castellanos, he reminds me a lot of Garrett Schrader. Scrambles in the pocket all the time, has excellent elusiveness, often running for his life solely because his offensive line isn't great. But at the end of the day, it's the consistency with Castellanos. Both of them can run. Both aren't the most accurate, and both, frankly, make poor decisions at times. But Castellanos has been playing at a high level pretty much all season, and you look at his performance in the Florida State game, that was really his breakout game, Peter.
Well, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. Castellanos, same name as Nick, of course, different pronunciation, but he was just as hot in the last couple games as Nick was at that early part of the baseball playoffs here. 628 rushing yards, Liam. The leading rusher among quarterbacks in Division I. That's pretty remarkable. How about this quote here he told the Boston Globe? Quote, "We're turning this thing around. Boston is back. Boston college football is back. We're no longer the laughingstock of college football or the ACC," end quote. How about that? Fiery words from the signal caller. You know who the current laughingstock of the ACC is? It's Syracuse, Caleb.
Fire me up, Peter. We mentioned the bad blood between the Eagles and the Orange, former Big East foes. There's been a history of, well, can we call it a rivalry? Syracuse and BC will meet each other in each of the next 7 seasons. So, Liam, can we call these two rivals just yet?
Caleb, in the 135-year history of Syracuse football, the program has only seen 4 opponents more often than Boston College. The Orange and Eagles have met 56 times, with the first matchup coming all the way back in 1924. In addition to being in the same conference for 33 years, the two schools are only separated by an approximate 4-hour drive on Interstate 90. So, that begs the question, is this matchup a rivalry? The series hasn't been overly competitive. SU holds a 34-22 head-to-head edge, including a 20-9 mark at home. However, a rather unsuccessful affair for Syracuse against Boston College took place inside the Dome 4 years ago today. A 58-27 Eagle beatdown over the Orange, the most BC has ever scored against SU. Last year's matchup was an interesting one too. Syracuse entered on a 5-game losing streak and trailed Boston College 17-6 early in the fourth quarter. But 26 points in the final frame propelled the Orange to a 32-23 victory over the Eagles, but that hardly made headlines. Last year's game was overshadowed by SU offensive lineman Enrique Cruz getting ejected in the second quarter for punching BC defensive end Donovan Ezeraku multiple times from behind. And it didn't stop there either. Orange wide receivers Devon Cooper and DeMarcus Adams both tried to plant a Syracuse flag on the Alumni Stadium turf at the end of the game last year, only to be met, however, by Eagle opposition. BC veteran offensive lineman Christian Mahogany commented in July, "I didn't pay attention much. I was already in the locker room when it was going down. I didn't know until after the game. Whatever happened, it happened, and I don't think we'll use it as juice. We'll have enough fuel to our fire." So, is Syracuse-Boston College a rivalry? Well, that's for you to decide. For what it's worth, Dino Babers believes it is. Caleb?
Thanks, Liam. It's time for another break here on Cuse Countdown, but don't go anywhere. We've got a game coming up. Who's Burner? Our analysts are deciphering some tweets, deciding who's voicing their concerns. Cuse Countdown, back after the break. Welcome back to Cuse Countdown here in our Citrus TV studio. Caleb Nice with Liam Griffin and Peter Elliott. Guys, we've got some keyboard warriors here, some PC power. I did some digging around and found some not so positive tweets after that last loss. So we're going to be playing some Who's Burner. I'll read the tweet. You guys will let me know who you think is behind the screen.
It's not my burner, I promise.
I promise it's not mine, too.
All right, well, our first tweet comes from I Am the Mob at Ohana Means Family. Dino loves his Ohana. Sure. It says, another game, another day of work, all the work on defense. It seems like it's just me out there. Where is my help? So much for the mob mentality. Liam, who tweeted this?
Believe it or not, Caleb, it's not a defensive player who tweeted this. It's a special teams player.
What?
It's Jack Stonehouse.
Wow.
The punter. 28 of his last 39 punts, Peter, have come in the last 4 games alone. And believe it or not, I don't think Jack Stonehouse is a bad punter. In fact, I think there's an argument to be made, Peter, that Jack Stonehouse is the best player on the team. And the fact of the matter is, with the defense letting up all these points, it's getting overshadowed.
What a take. The punter, the best player on the team, never good when he gets to that point in the season. Well, I'll say one player who might have a case for best player on the team, that's got to be Marlo Wax. This tweet is not shade, it is just the truth. He's the only one out there really doing anything. Marlo Wax is not waning. He leads the team in tackles. Against Virginia Tech, he had 14 of them, 8 were solo, 2 sacks as well. And he's the 4th leading tackler in the entire conference. This is a guy who's so special for this team, and Justin Barron is really the only other guy who's got a case on the defense for being a strong player. It's pretty remarkable, LG. These Orange teams, despite their records, always seem to churn out some NFL talent. Zaire Franklin, Andre Sisco, the list goes on. Marlo Wax is one of those guys. He will be playing on Sundays, despite how poorly the SU does on Saturdays.
I like that Marlo Wax pick. He's really been doing everything he can to put that defense on his back. Our next tweet comes from Dome Dog Devourer at Cam1 Caleb.
Is that
I
you?
swear, no, I'm not the glizzy gobbler. I swear it's not me, guys. It says, you can all talk your talk, but how am I supposed to appear talented or useful when Schrader is playing like that? Put the blame where blame is due. Peter, who would say such a thing, throwing QB1 under the bus?
Well, I think the Devourer might be a collective. It's the entire SU defense because they're tired of being out there on the field for so long. Like we saw 42 minutes down in Blacksburg against the Hokies. They've got no time to rest because they're just out there the whole time. The offense, these possessions are just so short. And actually, they're keeping the Orange in the games. I know some of the score lines might look a little lopsided, but think about Florida State, one of the highest powered offenses in the country. This Orange defense held them to just 17 points at the half. That's pretty good, and a competent offense should be able to keep pace with that.
Peter, I'm going to a guy we talked about earlier with all the scrutiny he's getting. It's Jason Beck. When your QB can't execute your system, what more can you do? And at the end of the day, there are no good alternatives either. Carlos Wilson hasn't looked good when he's been on the field. Beck, a former quarterback's coach, his system is built around strong quarterback play. When it's not coming, there's not much you can do. Jason Beck, Peter, has every right to be furious with this QB.
Yeah. I think Jason Beck might be firing out those tweets. You mentioned he was a quarterback coach at UVA. That's his quarterback who's really been struggling the past few games for Syracuse. Our final tweet here comes from Cuse Scoops at Otto's roommate. I think that's just Mrs. Otto,
I think Otto would make a great roommate for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Well, it says just a few games remain, and I'm beginning to lose my faith in this program. A loss like that to Virginia Tech is not acceptable. What are we doing? LG, who's not so happy in the 315?
I'll tell you who's not happy in the 315. The leader of Otto's army, the Orange Menace.
Wow, what a shout.
Emily Liker earlier this week tweeted on Syracuse.com that this is going to be announced as the highest paid crowd this year. What do they have to come see? How many fans are actually going to turn out? Attendance hasn't been great all season, even at home. So it's a long time calling. Fans like the Orange Menace have been calling for Dino's head. I have my doubts that the Orange Menace will even turn up for this game because of how brutal it has been. It's hard to not lose faith if you're a diehard fan.
I think at this point, fans are coming out to see that game they play where they try and punt the football into the Toyota truck so you win the truck to get that. I don't know what else fans are coming out to these games for at this point, but I'll tell you what, who always looks sad at these games is athletic director John Wildak. That's why I think he is behind this tweet. Really, he's got a lot to weigh right now. It's not easy. I know no one's shedding any tears over being the athletic director of a Power 5 institution, but it's got to be tough for John Wildak because if this was an SEC school, Dino Babers would not be coaching the Syracuse football team, but there are constraints here at SU, financial, NIL, timing as well, so there's only so much you can do, and he's going to take a lot of flack for what he's going to do, but he told Syracuse.com earlier this week that if Syracuse, more or less, that if Syracuse doesn't make a bowl game, Dino is done. I think that's why he said it. He can't say it out loud, so he's going to say it on Twitter.
John Wildhack in his feels. That'll do it for Who's Burner. One last break here on CC. When we come back, we talk schedule outlook and give our keys to the game. Don't go anywhere. Cuse Countdown back after this. Welcome back into the CitrusTV studio. Wrapping up Cuse Countdown, Liam Griffin, Peter Elliott, Caleb Nice breaking it all down. Syracuse and Boston College coming up on Friday. Guys, Skylar Grace wrote a great song. It goes, I'm coming home, tell the world I'm coming home, let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. Not sure there are more perfect lyrics out there that encapsulates where Syracuse is right now, playing a home game for the first time since late September, trying to wash away not the pain of yesterday, but that pain of last week. LG, how big of a role will the Dome play this week?
Not very. The pain of yesterday is going to become the pain of today. Here's why. Dino Babers 6-20 at SU in the month of November. That includes a 2-10 mark at home. He's even worse at home than he is elsewhere in the month of November. That can't bode well.
There has not been a road trip this disastrous since Steve Martin and John Candy tried to get from Wichita to Chicago in planes, trains, and automobiles. And now they're finally coming home, and I'm not sure it's going to get any better. This is a BC team with a lot of momentum, and really, yes, we're going to see a lot of fans out at the Dome. But how many butts are actually going to be in seats? I think teams, a lot of fans will look at this record 4-4 and think, hey, let's just have a good time on Marshall Street, not the JMA Wireless Dome.
All right, well, before we go, we have to give our keys to success. Liam, two teams with opposite trajectories. How does Syracuse snap that skid at home?
Syracuse snaps the skid at home by protecting Garrett Schrader. And it doesn't just fall on the offensive line. We've talked a lot, Peter, about how, frankly, awful it has been during this losing skid. At the end of the day, it's not just an offensive line problem. Yeah, it's a big part of it. But when your receivers aren't getting any separation whatsoever, there's only so much Garrett Schrader can do, because you're not going to throw the ball right to the defense unless you absolutely have no choice. If Schrader is running for his life and doesn't have an open receiver, there's not much SU is going to be able to do to win this game. When SU is going, it is going off of Garrett Schrader. You have to protect your quarterback. Arguably your best player, yes, with the exception of maybe Jack Stonehouse. You have to protect him if you're going to win.
I think for SU, you've just got to play hard. You're finally back in the Dome. Play hard for those fans that have come out for the final Dome game of the year. Play hard so you can snap a 4-game win streak. Play hard so you can make a bowl game. Hey, they're still in it. They're 2 games out from a bowl game. I know it's hard to believe, but if every single player gives a max effort, this team can actually maybe salvage this season.
Yeah, I mean, Syracuse 2 wins away from bowl eligibility. We mentioned Boston College 1 win away from bowl eligibility. The bad blood between these two teams, do you think it's going to make a difference? Give me a quick answer.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a very high-intensity game. Boston and Syracuse only separated by about 4 hours on Interstate 90, like I mentioned earlier. I think we're going to see a plethora of Eagle fans, Peter.
I think so, too. I think those Boston fans will travel well. I think we're going to see at least one scrap after this game, during the game, some extracurriculars, Caleb. Watch after that.
That would be fun.
Let's throw the gloves. That's going to do it for Cuse Countdown. Syracuse and Boston College in the Dome. Friday Night Lights. For Liam Griffin, Peter Elliott, I'm Caleb Nice. So long.